Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. It's time to reauthorize it, and it's running into some static. In part because there are a bunch of Democrats that oppose the nomination of Bill Pulte to be the new DNI to replace Tulsi Gabbard. And in part, I think there's some concern among some Republicans, at least, I'm one of them, with the abuses of Section 702, which is supposed to be for surveillance of foreign actors outside of the United States. And we know that has not been the case often. I don't know, they're trying to memory hold this, but as a 2023, it's not that long ago, FBI misused intelligence database in 278,000 searches. That's a lot of mistakes. Cheryl Atkinson, independent journalist, has reported on other such abuses, and testimony on the Hill from former FBI Director Christopher Wray that did not exactly square with the truth, which was unfortunately a frequent occurrence with him. Nonetheless, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth posting on X, America faces real threats from foreign adversaries, terrorists, cyber actors, and hostile intel services. Section 702 remains one of our nation's most effective tools for identifying and disrupting those threats before they reach our shores. The bipartisan Senate reauthorization strengthens both security and civil liberties by adding new safeguards, increasing transparency, expanding congressional oversight, imposing criminal penalties for misuse, and enhancing protections for Americans' constitutional rights. Unfortunately, there's a little bit of boy who cried wolf. Now, to be fair, it was different boys crying wolf under different reauthorizations. But still, you can understand the skepticism, particularly given a unclear status on how much draining of the swamp in the intel community has been done. Well, let's get some expert perspective on this and other matters. Please be joined, as always, by KT McFarland, former First Deputy National Security Advisor to President Trump, author of the bestseller Revolution, Trump, Washington, and We the People. KT, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
So where do you come down on reauthorizing 702?
I mean, I guess I come down the way you do. If it's abused, it's terrible. If it is used as it is meant to be used, it's probably quite good. Now, why is it abused? I think we've seen massive abuse that the Democrats have used it, especially in the Biden administration against incoming Trump people.
Yeah.
So a lot of that has to do with not just the political leaders who are advocating, who tell the civilians in the intelligence community, I want you to do this, I want you to do that. It's the intelligence community's employees alone who are, in the case of in the Biden administration, were only too happy to go after the Trump people because they thought that the Trump people wanted to drain the swamp, which Trump people did want to drain the swamp, and they were the swamp. So I guess I'm of you. I mean, as long as the safeguards are there, frankly, if Congress is doing its job, you shouldn't have the abuses. And if you do have the abuses, there are whistleblowers who can alert you to and then it should go, firmly against the people who are abusers, whether they are political leaders or whether they are civilians.
Right. I mean, again, and going back to the Obama years, a story from 2017, the FISA court rebuked NSA for 5 years of illegal surveillance of U.S. citizens. Jim Clapper famously lied under oath. So that was a FISA a judge that found that all these Fourth Amendment violations during the Obama years, too, 5 years worth of them. And so it becomes a question of, is it just the wrong people, or is it a power that you just can't trust to reside with these agencies, and particularly in sort of this modern structure of Congress?
Obviously it's bad actors, and it's bad actors who know how to manipulate the system. The whole point of having a FISA court was that there was supposed to be a judicial check to make sure that those abuses, could not be carried out. And it didn't work. Why? Because the FISA judges sort of went along with anything they were told. So I think, frankly, the best way out of all of this is hold people accountable, whether they're civilians or whether they're political leaders or permanent government employees or military. Just hold people accountable and have the Justice Department go after people who break the rules. I mean, the problem is now that everyone assumes, well, there's no consequence, so why
Right.
not?
Right.
If anybody ever thought, I better be looking over my shoulder because these political leaders asking me to do something, they'll be long gone and I'll be stuck holding the bag.
I want to get your take on something else, this sort of rolling development in Central and South America. Another event yesterday, the election of Keiko Fujimori to be the president of Peru, a right-winger. David Asman, Fox News, he wrote this in reaction to her victory. As someone who covered the region for a dozen years for the Wall Street Journal and reported in astonishment how even under conservative President Ronald Reagan, USAID was funding socialist projects in Latin America, I can attest to you that since USAID was defunded and thousands of NGO contracts were canceled, the left-wing parties are losing in Central and South America, that there's a direct correlation. We were propping up through USAID, at least partly, these left-wing socialist movements and maybe even governments. And once that has been removed, particularly in the context of acting in furtherance of your quality of life interests, you're seeing this run of right-of-center leaders being elected throughout Central and South America.
David Asman, who I've known for a long time and have an enormous amount of respect for, he really does his homework. And when I read what he had, I had watched what he had said about that too, and I'd never connected those dots. David did connect the dots, and it makes perfectly good sense. We were using American tax dollars to prop up anti-American political groups or NGOs who were then funding that money and funding their support to political groups. I mean, we were paying to screw ourselves. I mean, it's a vicious circle, and that's only one of the things about this as we uncover all of the layers of the onion of the NGO corruption, whether it's at home where you have the Somalis in Minnesota just ripping the government off for stuff that services they're not providing, and they're sending to the point where they were sending back to Somalia more money than is the GNP of Somalia because they were stealing it from American taxpayers under fraudulent means. And then now you see the next layer of the onion is, the foreign NGOs, we were supporting with our money left-wing groups who were then winning elections and taking over governments. Keep going. I mean, J.D. Vance, keep going and looking at more and more corruption because keep peeling that onion back, and the whole NGO, whether at home or abroad, is just riddled with fraud.
Yeah, and I mean, and what it's provided for, and not that everyone is going to be a transformative leader, but it certainly is reestablishing sort of a pro-freedom, pro-capitalist ethos in the Western Hemisphere. And there are some standouts, like, for example, Javier Milei in Argentina, that are turning that country around and quickly.
And then what happens in that part of the world is once one country goes that way, so Milei, who's come in and massively slashed corrupt, incompetent governments. I mean, whole departments just went under the chopping block. And now that the economy has turned around, freedom has happened. You look at another country, and when you look at Bukele, and what has he done? Well, he's put all those guys in Salvador in jail, all the career criminals. He's gone after organized crime. That country is where people now want to go flee to, not flee away from. And it becomes contagious. So if you're a neighboring country and you're under the yoke of incompetence or corruption or communism or the cartels, you're thinking, well, my neighbor did it, maybe I can do it. And so I think that Marco Rubio was really the first political leader to identify the ability of the United States to change the Western Hemisphere. And that has been a theme of his whole political life. And now it is finally coming to fruition. Within a not too long period of time, especially after the election yesterday, there'll be another election in Brazil where the pro-capitalist, anti-communist, anti-socialist candidate, Flavio Bolsonaro, is going to win. We are now going to have a Western Hemisphere, and ultimately with Cuba, maybe not too long from now with Cuba, that is pro-Western, is pro-American, led by the United States, is pro-democracy, anti-cartel, anti-communist, financially really solvent because of all the mineral and resource wealth of South and Central America. And we could be looking at 100 years of the Western Hemisphere really dominating the world in peace and prosperity.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting, and it's great because we helped Kamala Harris find the root causes of mass migration from the Northern Triangle countries. It was socialism, and if we just move these countries in the direction, or help them move, saw them move in the direction of free minds and free markets, well, there you go. We don't have the same influx. People aren't so inclined to flee their homeland.
Yeah, you know something, that she is just the epitome of the corruption and incompetence of the whole NGO movement. And with somebody like her out of the way and those NGOs that she was supporting out of the way, just let freedom ring.
What is your sort of latest, best assessment of where we're at and what Trump is attempting to do with the Iranians, and with some fits and starts with Bibi on trying to maintain some semblance of a ceasefire, such as it is applied, as he said last week. Ceasefire is when the shooting is more moderate. Yeah. So okay, but I mean, is Trump dithering too long with the Iranians, or do you think that we should just sort of still provide some patience here, and there's a deal to be had that we could actually enforce?
Yeah, you've mentioned that all the sort of key aspects of this. Enforce. We don't want to have to be the ones to enforce this. We can do part of it, but we don't want to have a permanent presence there looking under every rock. That's why it's so important to bring in the Gulf Arab countries into the Abraham Accords. The same way, Trump's got part of the way there with the Abraham Accords at the end of his first term, and Saudi Arabia, just as Saudi Arabia and others were getting ready to join the Abraham Accords, that's when Iran unleashed Hamas on October 7th to sabotage that deal. So what you need those Gulf Arab countries on your side, because the Abraham Accords originally was a commercial organization for trade, for commerce, for reinvestment. And it's been so successful that now it has turned into more of a security relationship. As Israel, I mean, can you imagine that there are Israeli soldiers who are in the UAE right now helping defend the Emirates against Iranian attack? You would never have said that was a possibility in a million years. But now we have a security relationship. So President Trump, behind the scenes, he keeps saying, I want to enlarge the Abraham Accords. That should be part of any deal with Iran. But at the same time, the Iranian leadership, they get that. They know that that's the problem for them. So the same way that they tried to sabotage the Saudi Arabia joining the Abraham Accords several years ago, they were looking at the peace agreements that are now being negotiated by part of the Iranian government, the so-called pragmatists, and they're probably getting pretty close, which is getting the hardliners and the IRGC mad. So I think what happens then is they try to sabotage that. How do they sabotage it? By causing Hezbollah to attack Israel, knowing Israel responds, and then you get the ceasefires broken. So I think they'll have a lot more back and forth. To me, the fact that Hezbollah is attacking Israel's response is probably, in a weird way, an indication that there is something good happening with those peace talks. Otherwise, Hezbollah wouldn't be as noisy as it is.
So, with respect to needing the Gulf states for enforcement after the fact, that makes some sense. Why not make the play then, which would be in the Gulf states' interest, to really amp up Project Freedom and provide escorts to commercial ships in and out of the strait while this is happening, because we can defend ourselves, and we would be helping those Gulf state actors that are our allies of certainly convenience in this situation. Wouldn't that be something that could expedite the process and strengthen the bonds for what post-deal looks like?
Well, part of it is that the Iranians are screwing it up themselves by bombing. Just last week, they bombed Kuwait. Kuwait's not yet a member of the Abraham Accords, but you're getting attacked by Iran. That's a real incentive to want to join the anti-Iran coalition. The other thing is that we apparently are getting ships through on the southern part of the strait, on the Omani side, but we're not making any noise about it. They're turning their responders. Nobody's seeing them come through. But they are coming through, not in the amount that they have been before, and definitely not in the amount that we need. But there is a path through. So does that get expanded upon? I'm willing to give President Trump a little bit more time, because I think he's got time before the midterms. The whole thing in Iran right now is that They think that Trump's going to blink first because he's nervous about the midterms. He's going to take a deal, any deal. And Trump thinks, well, I think they're going to blink first because they're in such massive economic distress and collapse that they don't have as much time as I have. So Trump has a couple of months. Does Iran have that long before their currency collapse and their starvation? Maybe not. They probably don't have a couple of months. Probably don't even have, more than a month or two. So I'm looking that this settles sometime in the summer when you get the Gulf Arabs alongside, when you get the Iranians definitely and desperate enough, and you give President Trump enough time to get it done before the midterms, and therefore the price of oil goes immediately down, the price of gasoline goes immediately down. Donald Trump is a great success.
KT McFarland, former first Deputy National Security Advisor to President Trump, author of Revolution, Trump, Washington, and We the People. KT, thank you as always. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And KT joined us on the alphawealthgroup.com answer line.
There's only one radio show in Chicago talking about today's biggest stories and telling you what they really mean. That show is this one, Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
If you're over 65 and struggling with knee pain, Joint Relief Institute offers a guaranteed way to treat it. It's non-surgical and often covered by Medicare.